Hey, welcome! So today, we're going to dive into a really powerful, and yeah, for some people, a pretty controversial idea. How you can totally transform your reality by changing your identity first. It all kicks off with this one single incredible claim. Okay, so just let that sink in for a second. This is the wild claim at the heart of what we're talking about today. A registered nurse who is making $37 an hour says she manifested $1 million in just 7 months. And how? By convincing herself it was already true. So, how in the world is that even possible, especially when you look at where she started? And let's be super clear about that starting line. This wasn't someone who is already comfortable or had a safety net. Nope. She started this whole journey $50,000 in debt. Her bank account was literally screaming the exact opposite of wealth.
And yet, this was the result. From $50K in the red to $1 million flowing into her life. I mean, the gap between those two numbers is just massive, which makes you ask, what on earth happened in between? Well, the answer isn't some crazy business plan. It was a fundamental mindset shift that had to overcome a huge mental barrier first.
So, the first major hurdle is one that is so deeply wired into all of us, we need to see it to believe it. We need that hard evidence, you know? We're trained to only believe what we can see and measure, which brings up a really critical question.
Right? How can you genuinely feel like a millionaire when your bank account is telling you you're broke? How can you feel confident when you have zero external proof that you should be? This is the core problem we all face. It's this clash between two totally different ways of seeing the world.
Now, the speaker behind this was a registered nurse. She had 2 science degrees. She explains that we're basically conditioned by the scientific method. For something to be real, you need proof. You need a lab test, an x-ray, a degree hanging on the wall. The physical world has to confirm the truth for us first.
So here it is, the big contrast. The scientific mind reacts to the world around it. It demands proof before it will believe anything. But the millionaire mind, as she calls it, works in the complete opposite way. It uses faith and belief to actually create the physical world. It runs on the idea that you have to believe it first, and only then will you see it. Okay, so how do you actually make that leap? Well, the solution is all about intentionally changing your internal state before anything in your external world changes. It's about deciding who you're going to be and then just being it on a vibrational level.
And when she says vibration, let's be clear, she's not talking about something mystical or weird. It's actually really simple. It's your internal state of being, the feeling you carry around with you. Are you walking through the world from a place of lack or from a place of abundance? The idea here is that you get to choose that.
She actually tested this whole principle out on confidence first. She started with this deep belief that she just lacked confidence. And guess what? The world totally mirrored that back to her. But then she made a conscious decision. Nope, I'm done with that. I will be confident. She changed how she stood, how she acted, how she talked. And pretty soon, people started coming up to her saying, "Wow, I love your confidence." Her external world had finally caught up to her new internal state.
So once she proved to herself that this principle worked with confidence, she took that exact same logic and aimed it right at her finances. She decided she was going to hold the vibration, that internal state of being a millionaire, even when all the evidence in her life was pointing in the complete opposite direction.
I mean, this quote right here shows the kind of discipline it takes. It meant she had to actively choose to ignore her bank statements. When the physical world said, "Hey, you're in debt," her internal commitment had to be stronger, insisting, "No, I am a millionaire." But trying to maintain that kind of belief, well, it brings up the second huge roadblock.
All right, so you've done it. You've decided to hold the identity. You're trying to embody that feeling of being a millionaire. But almost instantly, your logical brain kicks in and it starts screaming one very persistent question.
But how? How is this going to happen? What's the 5-step plan? Where's the roadmap? This is what she calls the how trap. And it's where our desperate need for a step-by-step plan can totally sabotage the whole thing.
The argument here is that when you obsess over the how, you're trying to do a job that isn't even yours. It's a kind of control that actually just creates resistance and slows everything down, because you start coming from a place of doubt instead of certainty.
So, the answer to the how trap isn't to make a more detailed plan. It's the complete opposite. It's about surrendering that need to know the entire path, and instead, just learning to act on those little intuitive nudges as they show up.
And what's really cool is how this breaks down a super abstract idea like surrender into something you can actually do. First, you just fully commit to the new identity. Then, you stop frantically Googling for the perfect plan. Instead, you just listen.
You listen for those little nudges or ideas, she calls them intuitive hits, and then, crucially, you act on them immediately.
This question became her guide, her North Star. In any moment, instead of stressing about how do I get there, she would just ask herself, okay, what would the millionaire version of me do right now? This question totally shifts your focus from planning the future to being the identity in the present, and the actions just start to flow from there.
So what it all boils down to is this. Both of those big challenges, needing proof and obsessing over the how, they're both solved by this one core principle. Your identity, the person you truly believe you are, is what creates your reality, not the other way around.
And this is such a powerful idea, right? You don't have to wait for the promotion or the invitation or for a certain number to pop up in your bank account to start being the person who has those things. You can hold that identity right now. And she shares this perfect little story that illustrates this.
So she wanted to be an elite leader in her company, but on paper, she wasn't there yet. So she goes to a conference and decides to just act as if she already was one. She dressed like she imagined an elite leader would, she sat right at the front of the room, and she talked to people with that same kind of unshakable confidence. She was holding the identity without any official title.
And this is the payoff. Someone literally sat down next to her, felt her energy, and just asked, "So, when did you become an elite leader?" Think about that. The woman wasn't reacting to a name tag. She was reacting to the identity that the speaker was putting out there. The internal belief had become an external perception. It was real to someone else.
And that really is the ultimate takeaway of this entire framework. Who you are being today is what is actively creating your experience of tomorrow. You've got to become it on the inside first, and only then will you start to see it on the outside.
So that leaves all of us with a final, really provocative question. It's not about what you want to have. It's about who you need to be to have it. Whether that's a confident speaker, a successful artist, or a patient parent, what identity are you going to decide to embody, starting right now?